Hello, everyone, and welcome to O3. My name is Colin Budka. I'm an associate product manager with O3 Solutions, and I'll be providing today's demo. On the phone with me, I have Susan Brandt, our VP of Strategic Accounts, who's here to provide some additional input and questions in order to make this demo as fruitful for you as possible. In today's demo, we'll start off by covering the O3's UI and a basic overview. We'll talk about some of our action management through team boards and the OnTarget solution. We'll then move on to talk about OnBuild, and then discuss OnPlan, OnDesign, and OnStart to fill out our solution offerings. So let's get started with the O3 user interface. As you can see, I'm currently accessing O3 through my web browser. We are a SaaS product hosted on Microsoft Azure and accessible from anywhere in the world. So it's quick and easy for me to quickly pull up O3. To start things off, on the left-hand side of our screen, we have our context overview menu. Here, users can swap between their project-level actions, like dashboard reporting, work package management, and constraint management. The overview section, where they can go and provide cross-project management or roll up across an entire portfolio or company worth of projects. We have our training section, where users can come and sign up for initial training within O3 or for other training on their site. And we have our system admin section, where users can change some of the settings around how the tool behaves. In the bottom left, we have our user profile section. So here we'll receive notifications as actions are assigned or important items change. We can access our help documentation, and we can change how frequently the app notifies us. And in the bottom right, we have our intercom, where we can reach out directly to a member of our support team for help. We also use this to push out some tips and tricks as users are first learning the tool to help them get involved and get started with O3. On my screen right now, I have an example of a dashboard within O3. This is an example of a sort of a practitioner level dashboard within O3. So this dashboard is targeted for workplace planners and constraint managers to get an understanding of the overall picture of constraints that they have on their installation work packages. Dashboards within O3 are highly configurable and are made up of widgets, which are the graphs and charts and tiles that you see on your screen. Each one of these can be customized to give me the exact view of the information that I'm looking to see. And we can even provide some color coding in order to give me an idea of the red, yellow, green of various potential issues on my project. As an example here, we have some query tiles. So for items that are not at any issue, we have, or sort of neutral, we have them as gray. For items that have some slight issue, we have yellow, and then as severity increases, we increase from orange to red. If at any point I want to find out more information about these constraints or directly address, one of the important features that O3 provides is the ability to drill down and directly address the issues. So I can click on this, for instance, this 40 constraints that are blocking my critical path, and it'll take me straight down to manage those 40 constraints. This provides us with some big benefits across other reporting tools, in that we both are providing a live view of the data and how it affects your position, and giving you the exact focus and drill down that you need in order to address those issues and impact change. From here, now that we've shown the dashboards, the next thing that we're going to talk about is how we can manage our tasks and actions within O3. Within O3, all of my actions across a particular team or groups of teams are gathered in that team's team board. So I'm going to go ahead and open up my team board. Here we have an example for field mobility software rollout. Here we can go through and take all of the different tasks and actions that my team will be managing on their project, be it one-off tasks, or be it constraints, or approvals, or other actions against various entities. And I can assign them out to a specific person and a specific due date to make sure that they get done. From here, I can view these in a list view in order to identify an action plan and plan out relative urgency and priority and quickly complete these. Or I can go through and view these in a card view in order to manage these in a more agile environment, where I can go and manage these in a Kanban type setting. I can also go through and view a date-based or schedule-based view using my calendar views or my Gantt views in order to give an understanding of my upcoming schedule and the upcoming work that my team will be handling. By going through and providing all of these actions in one place, it's easy for our teams and our team managers to understand both progress against our existing plan, upcoming workflow, and bandwidth across our various team members, so we can make sure that that collaboration across our entire team is a success. Now that we've gone through our dashboards and team boards, we're going to move on to our AWP-specific solutions. But it's important to understand that all of this information that I showed is available across all of our various AWP solutions. No matter which solution I'm in, I can still view in-depth dashboard reporting related to the specifics of the actions and entities, and I can manage my actions across all of those different entities and across my various teams using those team boards. With that, let's continue with OnBuild, and we'll start off by viewing our virtual construction model directly within the tool. Okay, now we're in our model. We can see we have a model of a portion of pipe rack readily available within the tool. As you can see, I'm still within my web browser and still accessing through the thin client, and that's one of the really important features that O3 provides. With OnBuild and its unlimited user licensing model, I'm able to provide this access to the model to more users on the project. This allows me to go through and coordinate beyond just that typical set of stakeholders that might have access to the model in a traditional environment, and allow us to coordinate across all of the various teams that have work related to this model. Directly through this model and by adding components, I can go through and associate to construction scopes of work, engineering scopes of work, test, turnover, and systems in order to fully understand this information as well. So it really goes beyond just that IWP development and allows for work packaging and visualization across the teams. Using my display modes, I can go beyond just this basic colorization to understand things like progress, blocking items, material availability, and constraints in order to make sure that my project will be a success. So let's look at the model itself. This model was pulled in directly into the tool. You can see we have an NWD model here. O3 supports over 70 different file types and also allows you to combine your model with various other pieces of project data. So for instance, I can take this NWD file and pull in some spool information from my PCF file, as well as some steel component information from my IFC model, in order to bring all of that component information into one central repository for easy access and easy management. Within my model itself, I can perform all of that functionality that I would expect. I can filter by discipline or by system or by purpose or by elevation in order to support various methods of packaging. I can go through the model and select entire groups from the hierarchy, or go through and select individual components by clicking one or more. And I can also go through and use the various visualization options to get the exact subset of information I need. From here, I can add these to an installation work package. Once I add these to a new or existing installation work package, I can filter down to just that portion of the overall model, set my model shot. So that this way I can go through and reference this view of the model when I'm working with my work package later on. So now that we have our model shot set on our installation work package, we can now move on to from our model into the work packaging itself. One thing that our workface planners sometimes do, if they have multiple monitors, is they could actually open this installation work package in a new tab and have the model in one tab and our IWP in another. So we can keep a sense of that graphical scope as we build out our work package. So here we are on our installation work package. From the IWP perspective, we're going to go ahead and cover the basics of our IWP development and build out, and then we'll talk about some of the constraint management, approval management, and issuance. Before we get started, there's a couple things to take note of. First is that for all of these fields that I'm showing you here today, the information is highly configurable. So I can go through and adjust my layout to add or remove fields to make sure that the subset of fields that I'm showing are the ones relevant to my project. I can also import any of this data that already exists in other tools, such as maybe my P6 schedule or some material management system, in order to aggregate all of that information in one place. Finally, for all of the rules that I'm showing and the auto-created items, the specifics of these auto-created items are, of course, customizable as well as their categories. We have some examples built out in our demo environment to give you a little bit of an idea of that capability. So on my IWP, we can first start off by showing some of the information that was added graphically. For each of this information and each of these details, you can also add this data non-graphically. Our client base is split between graphical and non-graphical implementations, so we, of course, support both ways and can apply automation and efficiency gains to both. So if I swapping over to my associations tab, I can start to see where all of the graphical component information has really come in. So here on the Drawings tab, I can see all of the drawings associated with the components that I added from my model have been added. And if I want to view it for reference, I can simply click on that little drawing icon in order to view the isometric directly within O3. All of the materials from those associated components or their associated isometrics can also be brought in. So I can see the full list of material requirements for my installation work package directly from the tool. The component information was also brought in, so I can also come back later to view any change management issues that might be flagged. And we all had some execution tasks automatically created for each of those components. So here for each one of my spools, we pulled in the total length of the spool, and then based on the diameter, we selected our execution task type. So from here, we have our overall total units, our estimated hours based on those total units and our rates of placement, and the execution task steps for our project. Each one of these steps is associated with a particular weighting. That's going to give me a particular set of earned hours for this execution task. These hours roll up to the overall IWP to give me a good sense of progress. Both these units of measure, the rates of placement, the execution task steps, and their weightings can all be overridden and configured at the project settings level and can be imported from other tools. And once I have those standards set up, I can then create this as a project template so that all of my future projects can utilize those same standards without any additional configuration needed. So with that graphical information, we've been able to close out the basics of all of our scoping and estimation. From here, our users can add in any additional drawings, documents, and deliverables. So by going in and importing the MDR, we're able to go through and associate our work package to any of the necessary documents that they might need. O3 goes a step further on these associations by checking the status of each one of these documents. So if there is a revision that needs to be updated, or a document's out for holds, or if a document's not yet IFC'd, all of these will be tracked as constraints within the tool, so that we can really leverage all of that data that already exists on a project in order to truly understand the impact that it has on our project and the work-based planning process. I can add in any additional drawings as needed, either by adding components or by adding in the drawings directly. And finally, I can create any expectations of the documents by creating deliverables. On the Materials and Resources tab side, I can track all my manpower, tools, and equipment requirements to understand the demand perspective. All of this will roll up to a dashboard level across all of my IWPs so that I can determine the overall demand curve for those resources and compare it to my overall supply curve. On the resources side, we can track any material requirements for the IWP, and we have a couple different ways that this can be used. So for our customers with sophisticated material management systems, we can pass this information into their MMS and then bring back that short report in order to manage those constraints. For our customers without a sophisticated material management system, or for customers who have subcontractors without a sophisticated MMS, we can also pull in the material inventory and then track that material, those material requirements against that material inventory in order to perform a nightly constraint analysis. So those constraints can then be assigned out and managed, and that really allows us to go that next step of managing that material availability. Finally, if we need any scaffold, we can track this using scaffold requests in order to understand those scaffold needs. Moving on to schedule and associations. So we've discussed our associations to documents and drawings, but we can also link our IWPs to any other predecessors and successors. I can use this to link my IWPs to the scaffold that might be needed to access the workface, or predecessor IWPs that need to be completed before this IWP can begin, or things like mechanical equipment, purchasing information, requisitions, and other pieces of data in order to make sure I have a full understanding of that full list of predecessors and successors. I can track those predecessors and successors to understand things like constraint count and readiness availability. And all of this will automatically manage constraints on my IWP so that all of the data is easily reflected without me needing to go in and regularly check or worry. I can also enter schedule information directly within O3 or import it or export it from another schedule tool such as P6 in order to keep the project information fully integrated. Now that we've defined all of the basics of our installation work package, we're able to move on to where we see a lot of the real value of AWP kick in, and that's in our constraint management. So O3 really goes beyond just the basics of constraint identification that you might see in your paper and pencil approach to AWP, as well as some of the legacy solution providers. And we really provide in-depth constraint management. The way this works is each one of these constraints is assigned a category, in addition, both for those manual constraints and auto-created constraints, as well as constraints that are coming in from various tools. These constraints can then either be assigned a due date, either manually or by our various rules that are in place on the project, to either assign these to a particular role or particular due date to make sure that they get done. These provide email notifications so that the responsible parties are fully aware that they have a constraint assigned. They can go through and manage these constraints. And for more complicated constraints that spread across various stakeholders, we can split out our constraints into multiple subtasks and multiple approvals to fully track that mitigation process. Both at the IWP level and at the constraint level, I have the ability to go through and track field level history in order to fully understand what's going on with a particular action. And I can also go through and provide comments in order to coordinate back and forth. In addition to this basic constraint management, we can also go through and provide some constraint automation. So we talked about the material constraint analysis earlier, and we talked about our constraints that are created from associations. I can also create constraints via import, so integrations with other tools. And I can finally create a set of boilerplate constraints. So I can create a list of constraints that are going to be applied to all of my IWPs that I'm always going to want to check, or to particular subsets, such as maybe only a particular contract or a particular discipline or a particular area are applicable for those constraints. Through O3's workflow engine, I can really go through and manage all of those different rules, manage their assignment, manage their due date, urgency, and priority to make sure that that constraint management process is as easy as I need it to be, as well as robust as I need it to be. So using all of this constraint management functionality, I'm able to ensure that all of my work is good to go by the time it's issued from the field. Once these constraints are completed, my IWP is now ready for review. So I can go and move this to the ready for review status, which creates a couple of approvals. Here you can see I've already checked these off. Approvals are like constraints, but they have two steps. One user or role can be responsible for submission, while another role-based approval is required in order to provide that final sign-off. Once my IWP is fully approved, I can move it into the approved status. So on all of O3 statuses, we can provide some checks, such as making sure that our IWP is fully approved, fully constraint-free, fully developed, fully documented, whatever our check might be. But from there, I can go through and provide final approval and issue it to the field. So this field issuance is going to take the PDF report that my company has provided. So this can vary across various contractors or be standard for the project, and can be configured to match an existing template that you are already using. And it's going to take that template, pull in all of that information that we provided on this installation work package. It's going to take any model shots and drawings and attachments that we provided and pull those in as well, and create that PDF report that can then be pushed out to the field, either through our O3 iPad app or through PDF email and access through an iPad, through printing, or through pushing to another tool like the Autodesk Mobile Suite. From here, once this IWP reaches the field, we can gather our various safety, productivity information. We can track any rework, any delays, and any other important progressing and hour tracking that might be needed in order to keep that execution fully informed. With the IWP available in the field, and actually throughout the development process, I'm also able to go through and link my IWP to a team board. So this is going to take all of those constraints and all of those deliverables and all of those approvals and pull them onto the appropriate information for my team. I can also assign specific constraints directly to specific teams in order for them to manage them in that agile environment, providing that really direct link to that on-target functionality that we showed earlier. Now, while all of this information is very easy and accessible to manage on the installation work package level, we also provide a lot of tools for bulk management as well as reporting of all of this IWP information. So I can go through and roll up all of my constraints or all of my approvals or all of my deliverables across all of these IWPs and report on them in a single easy system in order to manage them in bulk. So I can go through and view these in a particular subset, so I can filter these down to a particular CWA or particular stakeholder group, particular constraint types, group them however I might need. This allows me to go through and run my constraint review meeting directly out of O3. So I can gather all the stakeholders that I need and clear out any blocking constraints to make sure that that work is proceeding. All of this information also rolls up to the dashboard level, where we provide out-of-the-box dashboards and dashboard templates for our users to succeed. As a work-based planner, I can come in and view my overall constraints. I can view my constraints where I still need to assign an owner or assign a due date. I can view constraints that are blocking IWPs that are on my critical path, or blocking work that's upcoming this week, or view my IWP constraints based on their due date. I can also provide breakdowns by stakeholder, by number of weeks until planned start date, by various constraint types, and even by the quantity either of hours or by the key quantity or key output of my packages in order to make sure that these succeed. I can also provide this roll-up of all of my installation information in order to provide a higher level view of my project status. I can view things like an IWP Skyline report that's going to give me a report on my IWPs to show where we are in terms of constraint-free issuance or progress or completion. I can also roll up my views to view progress across CWAs or systems. I can also provide some reporting on the overall health of the process and on any out of norm buckets that might be taking place. So I can see, for instance, here the ratio of my actual versus planned duration. So I can see, hey, which of my IWPs are really having issues? Let's drill down into those IWPs, figure out what those issues are so we can address them on future projects. In total, we have over 500 widgets available for our dashboard reporting and over 100 installation work package widgets. So I won't get into all of those details in today's demo, but rest assured that all of this slicing and dicing can really be used to provide whatever reporting and whatever information you might need. Finally, we can measure the overall health of our process using our team goals. So this allows me to go through and provide some reporting to make sure that my IWPs, IWP constraints, for example, are being identified within sufficient windows, so making sure that process begins 8 weeks prior to the planned start date, making sure that they're being assigned out to a responsible party and due date 7 weeks prior, and making sure that they're being closed out at least 4 weeks prior. So this is just an example of one of the various best practices that we can show using our team goals in order to really make sure that our process is healthy and that our team is continuing to succeed. Now, there are a couple things that I really want to highlight that I've shown so far on Build. The first is that all this information is accessible through that thin client. So combined with our overall unlimited user licensing model for OnBuild, this really allows all of these different stakeholders to collaborate and succeed directly within the tool. Additionally, with all of this IWP constraint management functionality, we're really able to go through and manage all of those blocking items that we're really utilizing AWP to get down into. But that we really don't just limit this to our installation work packages. All of this functionality in terms of execution tasks, in terms of constraint management, in terms of approval management, in terms of access from anywhere in the world and by anyone with the relevant permissions on the project is available across all 10 of our work package types. Next, we're going to move on to talk about on-plan, on-design, and on-start. An important thing to note here is that while I'm referring to these as 3 separate solutions, they all exist within the same platform. So as an end user of the tool, I don't see the difference between on-design and on-plan and on-build. To me, it's all O3, and it's just the only features available for me to see are the ones that are relevant to the solution set that was purchased. So in the earliest phases in on-plan, we really allow our users to come in and replace the AWP master index. So oftentimes before O3, we see a lot of different companies are using tools like Excel or an Access database to create this initial package list of their CWAs and CWPs, EWPs, PWPs, etc. This can lead to a lot of issues in change management and revision management and in really managing all of these work packages as they're first being created. So O3 expands on the on-target offering. So we still offer that same set of dashboards and agile task management, but we also go in and provide additional functionality around being able to tie some early constraints and early approvals and early other actions to these different entities as they're being created. We have dashboard widgets that help you track the creation of this process. We also provide some data deliverables and data sources tracking so that you can make sure that all of this information is coming in with the proper fields, formats, and frequencies as you're first developing all of your packages. This transitions well into our on-design solution. In on-design, our main goal is to really bring the benefits of AWP that are traditionally realized only in construction to the engineering phase as well. So one of the ways that we really look to do this is to enable that same level of planning that it takes place in construction to be provided in engineering. That way we can continue to track all these engineering dependencies, be it owner input or input from vendors or dependencies between engineering work packages, and track these as constraints in order to really adequately manage them. In addition, we enable these various constraints and actions and execution tasks and the underlying scope of work to be added to Scrum boards and Agile boards in order to execute that engineering work in a more modern Agile environment. So let's take a look at what this looks like. On my screen right now, we have an example of an engineering dashboard. So here I'm showing some EWP status and blocking items. So I can see my master index sunburst of some of the initial packages that were created in this environment. I can also see some information about my total EWPs, my EWP approvals, constraints, and all of that information. Just like with the rest of the phases, I can click to drill down into the underlying data and can see some of the details of what we're doing on these engineering work packages. So these engineering work packages at a glance are going to look very similar to what we saw in OnBuild. We can still connect these to the 3D model for status visualization to understand things like constraints and like progress and like dependencies. We can track constraints and approvals against these engineering work packages to make sure we have the necessary feed-ins, geotechnical investigations, vendor data information, drawings, whatever it might be. We can still track approvals, both at the beginning phases as we're initially planning out the scope of work for the engineering work package, and in the end phases as we're signing off on completion. And we can track execution tasks at the EWP level. In addition, we have the ability to break down our engineering work packages into scope packages. So this gets into that breaking down the EWP down into those smaller phases, just like what we do with construction. So our EWPs can be broken down into 2 package types. vendor work packages, which are used to manage the interface with third parties, and design work packages, which are used to manage the work across all of the different design teams. These two package types can contain vendor data, so that's all the information that we're gathering from vendor data and drawings. They can contain drawings themselves, and they can contain documents, either for review or for creation. So let's first look at our vendor work packages. So our vendor work packages have all of the aggregated information from our underlying vendor data. We can jump down to the vendor data in order to see the specifics of the information that we're expecting, as well as associations to determine which engineering work packages are relying on this information. Finally, we can go in and look at the drawings themselves in order to start creating constraints. So as our REs come in and review all of the different issues with this vendor data, we can go in and start noting these using constraints. We can assign these out back to the vendor, add in subtasks for any of the mitigation actions that need to take place in order to close out this issue, and provide final approvals in order to make sure that we can proceed once this constraint is removed. So that gives the RE an avenue to say either yes, this problem was taken care of, or no, okay, we need to go back and add in some additional mitigation actions. This information and progress feeds back up into the vendor work package through that scope packages tab on VWPs. And then on the EWP side, we have that same information rolled up into the scope packages tab there, so we can track the overall vendor scope. On the design side, we can break our engineering work packages down into DWPs by each one of our design teams. These DWPs can be easily created directly from our grid. We can give them number, description, tie them to specific engineering work packages and construction work packages. And this allows us to go through and create our overall design scope. Once these DWPs are created, we can add in additional scope to define the drawings that will be created as part of this design work package. Or we can create execution tasks against this design work package to track the individual actions that might need to be taken against the model. All of this information, just like with vendor work packages, rolls up back to our engineering work package. So we can, again, continue to track the overall status. So by breaking down our engineering work package into these design work packages and vendor work packages, we're really able to get into that level 4 planning for engineering. Doing so allows us to identify our dependencies early and identify any potential blocking items that we can manage them before they become an early schedule delay on the project. We can also create early mitigation plans in order to address any issues, and again, keep that schedule moving, make sure that we can stay fully productive across all of our engineering teams. Where OnDesign really shines is when we take this information and combine it with OnTarget. Now that we have all of these level 4 items defined, along with all of our underlying actions, we can come in and start pulling each team's work onto their team boards. So as a user or as a team manager, I can come in and add my engineering work package or my team-specific design work package to my overall team board. So in this case, I'll add the full scope of the first engineering work package. This is going to pull all of the actions from that engineering work package and its scope children, so the underlying DWPs and VWPs, as well as drawings and vendor data, and bring them into one board so that I can start planning out those individual actions. From here, we can populate this backlog that we're seeing created with our assigned to users, our due dates, our estimated hours, any points that we might need, and all of this information so that we can fully understand the scope of work that we have yet to do. From here, I've got a lot of flexibility of how I want to execute this work. I can follow a traditional format by going through and planning this out with specific due dates and managing these action by action using our Gantt view and list view in order to address each one of those items. Or I can do a more modern approach and use Agile, such as with the Scrum methodology. To do so, I can go in and add a new section. I'll call it my first sprint. we can go in and add one or more of these actions to our overall sprint just by clicking and dragging into our new sprint. And then from here, we can either add all the tasks in the section to our new sprint board if we want to keep oversight within this parent board, or we can move all of our tasks. So this lets us go in and break this sprint off into a new team board. We can then execute that sprint and track our overall progress in order to use that agile framework. Just like with on-build, all of this information also rolls up across our EWPs and across our DWPs and across our vendor work packages. I can roll up all of my open constraints. I can roll up all of my approvals. I can roll up all of my execution tasks. And as you can see here, I can also group them by various fields such as EWP or system or CWP in order to get a good understanding of the relation between all of these issues. All of this information also rolls up to the dashboard level. So I can see both from a status level what the progress of all of my engineering work is, as well as from a practitioner work level, I can see my engineering work package approvals, what work is still blocked by constraints, what work is still relying on information from vendors and track that constraint information, and can see this information across EWPs, DWPs, VWPs, vendor data, drawings, and all of that. So in that way, we're really able to provide those benefits that are already being realized in AWP projects for construction, and bring those benefits to engineering as well. So Susan, do you have any questions about OnDesign or anything else that you'd like me to cover?
Yeah, that was great. Thank you.
Excellent. So this engineering work package information will then feed into our CWPs for on-build, so we can continue to track all of that information as our engineering items are completed and our CWPs get ready for release. Our CWPs have scope package tracking so that they can see the underlying IWPs, and you can track your constraints and approvals as well. From here, we move on into the scope of on-builds that we've already discussed, so we'll skip over that for now. But all of that on-build scope then also hands off into our on-start tool, which allows us to handle testing and turnover for that handover to commissions. So if I open my model back up, I can start to see the graphical scope that we have provided to date. So here I can see my model loading in again. And as you can see in the top right, I've changed my association type from IWPs to TWPs as I move into testing. Back in OnDesign, we did also, as I mentioned but didn't show, we did also have the ability to do this by EWP if we wanted to show that EWP status information. So here I can see my overall test work packages. On each one of my installation work packages, I've provided a test system and a turnover system. We also have the ability to track test subsystems and turnover subsystems, but we can then utilize that information to track the % IWP completion of each one of these work packages. This helps drive our overall test work package readiness and status. So I can go through and filter down to a particular test work package in order to get an understanding of its status, and using that status option on the left. Or I can go and get a look at my overall model and color code the entire model using our display modes. So this lets me go and swap to the work package status, and now I can see which IWPs we're still waiting, or sorry, which test work packages rather we're still waiting on IWP completion for, which ones have already started, which ones have the appropriate documentation, which ones still need the approvals, all by color code, which I can easily see in this work package statuses, as well as for each one of the associated test work packages. On these test work packages, I can go in and look at the details. So this, just like with our other entities, test work packages have our constraints and approvals and execution tasks that really allow us to drive the underlying action of our TWPs. We also have deliverables that are utilized to track the overall outputs and test sheets that come from these test work packages. And this is really where we see a lot of those approval workflows that I mentioned back in OnBuild, where we really see them take root. We can have multiple stages of approvals locked down to multiple separate roles, and use these approvals and those various status relationships to drive completion in an orderly manner. Additionally, I can go in and assign out any subportions of the scope as needed and add these TWPs back to my team boards if I want to manage the work from there. Similarly, on turnover, I'm able to go in and again provide the constraints, provide the approvals, track all of our check sheets, track all of our execution tasks, and provide final sign-off for that handover to commissioning. All of that documentation or necessary documentation and requirements can be tracked using those deliverables tabs and assigned out. And just like with our constraints and approvals, we can go and track our roll-up of all of our deliverables. All of this information, along with all the other information on our project, rolls up into the dashboard level. And it's important to note that outside of just those specific dashboards that I showed before, we have the ability to go in and track all of our high-level dashboards. So here we have an example of a project status dashboard for the earlier phases where we're looking at things like mechanical equipment, leading indicators, EWP statuses, PWP statuses. We can also go through and set up meetings for our project management leadership teams. So we can go and track the overall key metrics that we are tracking for our project. We can track various risks and track those as well. And all of the information throughout O3 is brought up to each level of the project in the manner that they need to see it so that the O3 can continue to drive the project to success and drive our individual users to action. So I think that's about all the time that we have to cover today. Susan, are there any questions that you'd like me to answer before we wrap up?
No, that was fantastic. Thank you. I think this is a good high-level overview of the AWP suite of solutions. So thank you, Colin.
Well, thank you, Susan, for your time, and thank you, everyone, for watching. If you have any questions, you can reach out to Susan directly at susan@o3.solutions, or you can contact us at support@o3.solutions. And thank you again for your time.